Welcome to this public meeting of the Mayor and Council for September 29th. It, as I'm sure you all know, is not on our schedule of meetings, but I called it because I believe that there's a lot of information that the public ought to hear, again, concerning the proposal to install an artificial turf field at the Faber Recreation Complex. I declare this to be a properly constituted public meeting of the Mayor and Council. Please call a roll.
Councilmember O'Hagan?
Here.
Councilmember Payson?
Here.
Councilmember Orsak?
Here.
Councilmember Serrato?
Here.
Councilmember Davis? Councilmember Nagara?
Here.
Tonight, the focus is on the financial aspect of this. And having said that, I'll ask Councilman Nagara, the head of our Finance Committee, to lead us. Councilman Nagara.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd first like to thank everyone for coming out, and over the past several months, the borough has been putting out information, will be putting out additional information regarding the proposed renovation project at Faber. We feel that with the project being a referendum on the ballot, we would like as much factual information out there as possible. And again, I've been, as the mayor has stated, listening to comments, a lot of misinformation out there. So we just want to get as much factual information out. Tonight, the focus will be on the financial end. How are we going to pay for the proposed renovation to Faber? We have looked, and just to start off, we have looked at several options, and I hate speaking for my colleagues on the council, but I believe each of us has been in favor of a natural grass surface. That was our priority, and just with the evolution of our research into it and the testimony from experts in the area, that's where we decided it may be more favorable to go with a synthetic surface, namely turf. But in that light, we've been looking at, especially the members of the Finance Committee, putting out forecasted data, impacts per household, so on and so forth. To summarize it, we thought it was prudent to seek advice or sort of reinforcement from independent sources. So our first source was our outside auditors, and they came in and pretty much put together debt financing, debt service schedules, similar to what we on the Finance Committee had compiled. And our next step was to bring in whom we feel is an expert and who I'll introduce now. And she is from Phoenix Advisors, and she's a partner, and her name is Sherry Tracy, and she deals primarily with local government entities and debt financing. And she was able to put together some financial schedules, and which again pretty much reinforced the numbers that we had been looking at all along. So if I can call up Sherry to just give a synopsis of your findings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity. As you had mentioned, we had put together a schedule to look at the financing of a $3 million project over a 10-year period. Used a conservative interest rate by today's standards. Of a 265. If we were to go to the bond market today to finance this project, you would probably be looking at a rate of maybe around a 230, a 235. I've added a little bit onto that, knowing that we wouldn't be able to get to the bond market specifically today, and the rates are always changing. So we've hedged about 30 basis points on the rate and used a 265. So based on a 265 rate over the 10-year period, we come up with an average tax impact analysis on the average home, which in the borough is just over $549,000, of about $75.47. Again, that is financed over the 10-year period. It takes into account the existing debt of the borough and trying to help to maintain a level tax impact without a lot of fluctuations in the rate each year.
Thank you. Just as far as that $75 per household, would that be a constant amount each year, or would that vary?
It would vary based on the way that the $3 million is amortized. What we would recommend, and what we do with a lot of municipalities, is we would look at your existing debt, as we did in this case, and we would still have a somewhat aggressive amortization schedule. We're not going to push principal to the future. You want to start amortizing principal right away and be responsible with the debt. However, you would also look at what the existing debt is of the borough, knowing that some debt would come off existing debt would mature in 2018. We have structured the impact for this project to go up slightly in 19, knowing that the existing debt is actually going to go down a little bit to help smooth that out. If the referendum were to pass in November, bonds would most likely be sold, or could be sold probably about January or February, which would mean there would be no principal due in 2015. Based on the schedule we put together, the tax impact on the average home for 2015 would be about $9, because that's interest only for the first year, and then it would and then would vary each year there again depending on what the final interest rate would be. We've used a 265 for the entire 10 years, but when you go to the bond market to finance the bonds, you may end up with a different interest rate for each year. So the first couple of years might be 1%, and then the last year might be 3%, but overall the average might be around that 265 level. So that may shift it a little bit.
Very good. So again, just to repeat, the total debt service for 2015, supposing the $3 million bond issue to go through, would be about $9 per household.
Yes.
Yeah, because that would only cover the interest for that year, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. As just reviewing the schedule that you had put together, I've noticed that again, it isn't a constant rate. That's why I asked the question. And thank you for elaborating on it. But what I'll call the bulk of the debt service, and the debt service is just our annual payments on the bond principal and interest, that's per year, would not really kick in until the year 2019. Okay, and again, as you stated, the borough would have debt coming off of its books, additional debt in 2018. So that would sort of create a fairly level payment schedule. Okay, so it wouldn't be a shock to taxpayers in one particular year. Is my assessment correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Also, just the numbers that you have here do not include the monies that have been guaranteed by the sports associations. That would be additional funding that would go towards this as well, correct?
That's correct, yes. This is just straight financing of the $3 million. There's been no offsets included in this.
Okay, so we do have offsets of monies coming in, which would help this number as well.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
With all that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carmen, you want to continue?
Councilwoman Sarago?
Yes, I just wonder if you would share with everyone our capability as a municipality to handle this debt, as well as comparing us to other municipalities, whether we're higher or lower our debt service.
Yes, absolutely. The borough's debt is actually well below many other peers, other municipalities in the state. As you know, you have the ability to borrow up to 3.5% of your average equalized valuation in the borough, and you're well below that level, around 1% or maybe a touch below. So there certainly would, this does not get you anywhere close to that borrowing capacity, you're still well below the capacity that you're permitted from the state. And below average of what we see for other municipalities.
I'd just like to add a point. I alluded to earlier that the borough had explored the option of a natural grass turf, and the latest estimates we received from our professionals was that a fully comparable grass surface with adequate drainage would run approximately $2.35 million in total for the project, whereas the turf would be approximately $2.7 million, just over $2.7 million. So, you know, I just wanted to put that out there if we were to compare projects. Why, I've received the question, then why bond for $3 million if we expect a $2.7 million project? Well, the 2.7 doesn't include some ancillary costs, some what we were just speaking of earlier, as soft costs, engineer fees, bond issue underwriter costs, and so on, as well as overruns, which the borough felt it was prudent to have at least a bit of a buffer, you know, when undertaking a project like this. If we would compare that to, let's say, a grass project, hypothetically, that 2.3 million for grass would go up to 2.6. So just to compare apples to apples, looking at each of the projects, you know, side by side. A couple of other things that we did not mention were, well, what was mentioned was the firm commitment we received from the recreational groups for $50,000 per year over the life of the debt service, which would be 10 years. However, there are additional costs of, the borough felt it was prudent and a good practice to set aside a reserve fund for a replacement turf field. And we, through our dealings, you know, with our experts, we felt $90,000 per year would be adequate to cover a replacement turf. Now, again, who knows what the cost of a turf will be in 10 or 12 years. We're hopeful that would more than cover the cost of a replacement, but the $90,000 would be an excess cost each year to the borough to go into the replacement fund. And just to take it one step further, we've looked at comparable costs of maintenance between grass and turf, and our best estimates indicate there to be approximately a $25,000 per year variance, with turf being approximately $25,000 to $30,000 less in overall maintenance per year. Depending on what studies you look at, you can pretty much go back and forth and argue those figures. There would also be additional advertising revenue that we anticipate, and of course the advertising would all be at the discretion of the council. I don't foresee anything obtrusive or that would affect the neighbors by any means if we were to go that route. And we would also anticipate additional revenue in terms of field usage and rental during the summer months when it's sort of a downtime for some of the sports teams. I know there are a few, soccer, for example, may be interested in renting it and paying additional fees. So that's sort of the whole picture. And what the borough has done is we've just put out revised frequently answered questions on the website, and we'll be posting a PowerPoint with all of this financial data and other data shortly within the week on our website. So please look out. And we go to questions or?
Irene, how you doing now? Good. Okay. So does that pretty much conclude what you had to say?
Yeah.
Anyone else up here have anything to say or ask? No one else? I'll ask for a motion to...
Oh, Mr. Mayor, can I just summarize?
Sure.
You know, I've stated, and this was reinforced by our professional, certainly Ms. Tracy, who's here tonight, reinforced that, you know, issuing the bonds would not or should not impact our bond rating, nor will it, we're well under our debt capacity. Also, issuing the additional $3 million bonds would still not impact as far as our debt service from what it is now. It'll still remain flat. With that said, it's still $3 million, which is a big number for a town like this, and the council has, done its homework, as I said, but it is still it's a tough pill for me to swallow. I know when we spend money on roads or a new fire engine or whatever, it doesn't go without a lot of thought, and certainly this project has. So, at the end of the day, when people come up to me and they have been, well, I'm on a fixed income and my tax is already high, why do we need this project? Or, how is it going to impact me? And so on and so forth. That's it. I have to be honest, tough for me to answer, because $3 million is a large sum if you're looking at it like that. Hopefully, we've answered some questions with how it's going to affect each year the taxpayer, and I'm comfortable that the project would be, an overall benefit to the borough, and in my opinion, it is a necessity. Once we start dealing with safety issues, that's where, what price tag do you put on that? But with that said, I would like to speak this time for my colleagues on the council and do say we each did our homework, and $3 million, again, it is a large price tag, and it didn't go with a lot of back and forth, and it certainly wasn't in a decision that was passed overnight. So I just wanted to add that sort of as a final recap.
Carmine, thanks. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Thank you all for coming.